Today we're going to be talking about dipping or dyeing your traps, whether that be conibears, dog proofs, footholds, you name it, and most of the time you dip it. The number one reasoning behind why we dye our traps, number one most important, is to protect our investment. Whether you have $10 into equipment or $10,000 into equipment, it's important for us as trappers to protect that money that we've invested in our equipment and make that equipment last as long as we can. And it the main benefits of it, it'll protect the springs of your trap. That's a big thing for me, especially on dog proofs, is keeping those springs nice and sealed tight with a good dip or dye, in order to allow for those traps to be good and strong year after year for me. I'm not going to get into product too much. This is more about the concept of dipping and dyeing, not what I use or what I like and don't like. But essentially, I'm just using a dip, a store-bought dip. I feel like it's probably one of the easier things to use, especially for a beginner. You can use a whole lot of different things, and I'm not even going to get into the argument about what's the best, what's the worst, and all that stuff. But we're gonna get into it here, guys. Like I said, I got a couple 220s and dog proofs that I held back just for this video while I'm dyeing here. So we'll get the camera adjusted here, and I'll show you guys a little more in depth of what I'm talking about as far as dyeing our traps and preserving them for them to be good for years to come. All right, so I got my three different, well, it's two different kinds of traps, but there's really three different stages of traps here. The dog proofs you guys can see are white, little to no rust. The only reason that I'm dipping those is I want them to be nice and dark color. I don't like that white. I think it sticks out too much. It's just a personal opinion, but it's another thing to where if you want your traps to be a different color, maybe if you bought them used or something like I bought those, it's a great way to do that by dipping them, and it'll also protect those springs. And by those springs, guys, I'm talking about these springs here on the DP. This is what you want to protect. This is where all that power comes from. Behind this trap is right in here, and you guys can see that paint's chipping off of there from when the last guy, I believe he spray painted them, it looks like, which is another method you can do too, but we're only talking about dipping here. But the way that that's starting to come off, I definitely want to get them traps dipped to protect them springs. And then another thing, that's why I got these two different kind of stages of 220s out here. When you get a 220, they're essentially going to look like this. There's a little bit of surface rust on them because I cleaned them off last week. But when you get that new trap, brand new shiny trap, and you get that out of the box, you want to get that grease off that trap. My personal method is I use a power washer and clean all that grease off of that trap. To me, it takes 3 to 4 weeks. Normally I leave them outside for a month after I spray them off, and you'll get a nice coat of rust going on those traps. And rust isn't a bad thing, guys, because this is just surface rust. I mean, you guys can see I'm literally rubbing my finger along there and it comes right off. But allowing that trap to build up some surface rust will allow your dip or dye to take much better in that trap. Like these traps here, if I were to dip these right now like this, they're not going to turn out near as good as what that trap's going to look like, because that surface rust will absorb that dip, and it'll work out pretty good. So I'll kind of show you guys my dipping setup here. We'll get the camera readjusted and show you guys what it's all about. All right, so this is what I use to dip all my traps. I've been at it for quite a bit today. You don't need anything this big at all. I used to use a 5-gallon bucket. It works just great. It depends on what kind of traps you're dyeing, based on the size, because you want those traps to be able to be fully submerged in that dip or dye, whatever you're choosing to use. But you guys can see I got them nice rusty 220s here. We're going to take those nice orange rusty 220s and turn them into nice dark color 220s over there like that. So essentially all I'm doing, I got wire on here, so I can do them 3 at a time. Again, not necessary. Do whatever you prefer to do. Run these traps through here, make sure they get good and coated up, like so. Get nice and coated there. And from there, first of all, be careful because this stuff will stain your clothes like crazy. I'm not so good at that, but these are working pants anyways. And then we're just going to take our traps over. You need some sort of jig or something to hang these traps on. Normally I'll hang mine for a week to 2 weeks after they're dyed. Sometimes less, just depends. But yeah, guys, you can see those nice bright orange 220s got pretty dark pretty quick. And that's the goal of it. Now those dog proofs that weren't very rusty, but I just wanted a different color, you guys can tell, they're not as dark as I'd like them to be, but they're still a lot darker than they were. It took all that bright white away, and it works out pretty good. So we'll go ahead and take a batch of the DPs here, run them on through. Same thing, just submerge them. It's the same step for 1.5s. You just want to make sure you blow all that grease off of them with a hose, power washer, dishwasher, something like that. But just dip them, shake the excess off of there. We'll take them back here and get them hung up with the rest. So pretty simple stuff, guys. Hope you learned something from this video. Just want to really nail home the concept that it's very important that we as trappers protect our equipment, guys. There's a ton of different ways to do it, but you want to make sure that your investment in that equipment is going to be good in the long run. You want those traps to be working for you for years to come. So that's the point of dipping traps, guys. Appreciate y'all watching, and thank you.